These school shootings have to stop. SMH.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. As always, this is the last podcast before we have a little bit of a break for the All-Star game. We'll be back for next Thursday for the show. What we're going to do in today's show, we're going to break down the 12 games we had on Wednesday, preview a very light 2-game Thursday in the NBA for DFS, shine that player spotlight on Jingle and Joe Ingles. That's it. So, Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Oh, that's a great idea. Let's go to the monstrous line of the night because we've got tons to talk about. It goes once again to Anthony Davis, who had 42 and 15, 2 3-pointers, 3 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 1 trip to the locker room, 1 questionable to return tag, and 1 absolutely monster performance. 15 of 18 from the field, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. I said that Karl Anthony Towns was the number 1 player over the last 2 weeks yesterday. Well, over the last 2 weeks now, Anthony Davis is the number 1 player. He's number 3 over the season, averaging 27 and 11. But let's have a look over those last 7 games, what he's been doing. 33.5 points, 11.5 rebounds, 1.7 triples, 2.4 steals, 1.7 blocks, 51 and 81, shooting 43% from 3. He is on an absolute tear at the moment. This is the guy that we thought could be a number 1 guy, and then a lot of people were scared off by injuries over the last couple of seasons. This is it. This is Anthony Davis. This is number 1 fantasy guy, Anthony Davis. We always get that smaller, oh shit, no, he's gone to the locker room. But legit majority of the times, he ends up being fine. He goes there, like he slides, he hurt his groin, he comes back out, and he was still an absolute monster. He had 31 points in the first half in this demolition. The last 3 games Anthony Davis has put up 44, 17, and 2 with 6 steals and 3 blocks. 38 and 10 with 3 triples and 2 blocks, and then today's 42 and 15 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. That is as monster of a group of performances as you will ever see. It is absolutely craziness, that sort of average that he is putting up in those last 3 games. Just bonkers stuff from Davis, and you're absolutely loving what he's providing for you as a Pelicans fan or as a fantasy owner that has him. The waiver wire line of the night, it is the same bloke. It's Andy Harrison of the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh, it's the same bloke as the waiver wire line of the... Sorry, try again. The waiver wire line of the night and the young gun of the night is the same bloke. It's Andy Harrison of the Memphis Grizzlies. 28, 2, and 3 with 5 triples and a steal. 10 of 16 from the field and 3 of 3 from the line. There's been many surprise performances this season, but Andrew Harrison becoming a legitimate NBA role player, rotation player, is absolutely right up there. He was as putrid as it gets last season. Couldn't do anything, couldn't dribble, couldn't shoot. He had a true shooting of 47%, hit 32% of his shots, couldn't do anything. This season, over the last month, he's a top 100 player in only 27 minutes because he's shooting at 49% from the field in that time, 44% from 3. He's at 36 for the season, averaging 12 points and over 3.5 assists. He's still down on the defensive numbers, just 0.6 steals. He's not going to rebound much, but the assist numbers, the high efficiency shooting, elite from the free throw line. He's missed 1 free throw, I believe, over the last month. Let me just check with my sources on that one. Let's have a look. What's his free throw? Yes, he's 29 of 30 over the last month from the free throw line. So that's pretty decent from there, and that's volume enough that it's actually contributing to your free throws in a real positive manner. The return of Tyreke Evans, well, Andy Harrison's the 50th ranked player in the last 2 games that Tyreke has been back, obviously buoyed by this performance here. If you want to own him in a 12-team league, I don't think there's any issue with that at all. We do have to remember that Wayne Selden was out of this game, and maybe that cuts into Harrison, but prior to that, it wasn't really. Harrison was getting the bulk of those minutes. He'll start alongside Tyreke, and he is absolutely, in a 14-team league and up, he is a must-own player. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I would be, and that is one of the strangest things I've said to myself, that Andrew Harrison is a must-own player. And in 12-team leagues, you can definitely consider him because those assists can be hard to come by. The efficiency, which very well may drop off, but it's nice at the moment. He's hitting threes, he's doing a little bit of scoring, and there's room to improve those steals, we hope. But yeah, really impressive stuff from Harrison. I legit never thought I'd be talking about him. I didn't think he'd make the final roster because the Grizzlies had like 18 blokes with guaranteed contracts. Oh, Harrison's not going to make it. They're just going to cut him. But no, not only are they not cutting him, they're starting him, playing in big minutes, and he has responded. So shout out to him. It's always great to see someone be able to do something like that and become from one of the worst, literally one of the worst players in the NBA to being a real positive contributor to a team like Memphis. Not saying he's ever going to be a sixth man or a starter on a playoff team, but he's starting on an NBA team and he's productive and he's far from the worst. He's far from the worst starter in that group. He's considerably better than Dylan Brooks to me, and I think he's better than JaMychal Green. But maybe I'm in the minority with that one. The dud of the night. Tony Warren Jr. was not good. 5 points with 1 rebound. No other stats. 2 of 7 from the field and 1 of 2 from the free throw line. Just an absolute turd burger of a performance. Warren's numbers over the last 2 weeks aren't pretty either. He is outside the top 150 there. And that's because what he normally would do for you is he scores and he does it with high efficiency and moderate free throws. But his free throws are down at 70 over the last 7 games. He's only at 47% from the field, which you might say, that's pretty good, Josh. But this is a bloke, because of his deficiencies in other areas, you need 50% finishing. You need 50% field goals because that's where his strength comes from. If he goes and dips below league average, that becomes a problem for him. He's at 50% for the season, but recently the numbers have dropped down. He's not really a high guy in terms of, he's a shit bloke in terms of assists, doesn't really get, and that's an incorrect use of the term shit bloke. I apologize for trying to confuse you Americans in terms of how shit bloke gets used. He's not a shit bloke. He is shit at getting assists, is what I was trying to get across. Doesn't rebound the ball much. I still think he needs to be owned. I don't think there's too much debate there, but I could very, very easily see the situation where he moves to a 28-minute bench role and they give Josh Jackson his starting role and try and develop a Peyton, Booker, Jackson 1, 2, 3. Not that Jackson really hurt for minutes today coming off the bench, but I could see that sort of move happening and that we'd have to reassess what we're doing with Warren. But he's dipping at the moment because that elite efficiency that was really the bedrock of his fantasy value has dipped recently. Let's go on to question time now, and let's see who does today's question come from. Bring it up for you here. It comes from Craig David. I assume it is not the Craig David. If it is, shout out to you for listening and following. He is on Twitter at CraigDavid19. He said, if you could compete in one event at the Winter Olympics, what would it be and why? Lots of Winter Olympic questions coming in. I have not watched a single second of the Winter Olympics, but I do know about it. I think I've just been busy watching basketball, working and doing some watching some other. What else have I been watching? I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's something. It's not coming to my head, but I haven't watched a single second of it. I'm sure I'll watch a little bit of it at some point. But the event that I would compete in at the Winter Olympics, I think skeleton. I feel like, if I was going on a luge, I wouldn't have as much control, but going head first, even though it feels way more scary, I feel like I'd have more control over that. I've got no problem with going down things fast. I'm relating all this to water slides, of course, which is completely different to luge, but I think that would be the skiing, snowboarding, forget it. No, I have no sideways balance in that respect at all. I can ski, but I can't like skateboard or I can't snowboard. So forget that. Forget moguls or aerial or any sort of that, just way too uncoordinated. I think skeleton would be the one for me, even though I'd probably be dead in about the first couple of months of doing it. But you're doing it, competing at the Olympics. So skeleton would be my one, just because no fear of going down head first down a hill, and that's the best reasoning I can come up with for that one. All right, let's get into these games now. Let's start talking about them. There were lots of them, so strap yourselves in. We had 12 games across the NBA on Wednesday, Valentine's Day. The first one of those, the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Heat had a huge lead over the Sixers, and I can't believe that they gave this game up, especially without Joel Embiid for the Sixers. Jim Johnson, I guess he made us enough proud to play the song. before we get too excited about this, he played 21 minutes, and that's without Kelly Olynyk. So when Olynyk comes back, the minutes are going to be a real stretch. He had 22, 4, and 5, but I'm guessing a 90% true shooting is an unrealistic expectation for Jim Johnson as we move forward, and it's feeling tough to consider him a must-own guy, although that is 2 strong games in a row. I just think the circumstances aren't leading to it being repeatable. Hassan Whiteside, 29 minutes, 16 and 10 with 3 blocks. I said shipbloke incorrectly before for TJ Warren. Hassan Whiteside has a massive, massive air of the shipblokes about him. I feel like he is very much in it for himself. And it just comes across the vibe that you get from him, some of the punches and elbows he's thrown in his time in the NBA. But when they ask him, what are you going to work, what are you thinking about after the All-Star break? I just want to get more minutes. Like, mate, if you're not helping the team, it just, I don't know. It just feels like it's a weird thing to say. I think that he is on his way out at Miami at some point, and I just feel like there is some sort of attitude issue creeping in there. But we don't know what minutes he's going to get on a nightly basis. He might get 22, he might get 32. 16 and 10 with 3 blocks is nice. You've got to still keep owning him, but this is what makes Bam Adebayo not a must-own guy for 12-team leagues. Olynyk's going to be back, same as with Jim Johnson. Whiteside could play 30, he could play 20, and Adebayo's minutes are going to be all over the place. He played 19 here and had 3 points. The Duke had 8 points in 31. Joshie Richardson, foul trouble limited him to just 23 minutes. Still had a steal and a block and hit 2 triples and 2 assists. So it wasn't a complete write-off. You just, of course, want more there. And with him in foul trouble, Tyler Johnson played 29 minutes, and that also enabled the Duke to get that extra playing time. Johnson had 12, 1, and 6 with 2 steals, but I don't think that he is going to be approaching those minutes. Johnson, that is, on a nightly basis. On the Sixers, no Embiid, so Amir Johnson started, but it was Rashawn Holmes who outplayed him. 28 minutes for Holmesy, 11 and 9 with 2 blocks. I don't know if this means that Holmes will be in the rotation when Embiid is back. We've seen him have a few good performances before and then still not play again. So I don't think there's really any value in adding Holmes outside of 20-team leagues, 30-team leagues, but that's probably it. Benny Simmons had another triple-double, 18, 12, and 10 with 4 steals. 53% shooting, only the 2 of 5 from the line, but another strong game from Simo, while Dario Saric had 19, 8, and 3. He has exceeded my expectations this season. I thought they'd find it hard to play him, Simmons, and Embiid and Covington all together in the same lineup, but they've made it work. Marco Bellinelli made his Philadelphia debut and played 28 minutes, 17 points with 3 triples, nothing else. So there's a couple of things there we look at. He's not going to shoot 58% and 60% from 3. He's not going to get 28 minutes every night. This was a game that Robert Covington was limited with foul trouble. TJ McConnell only played 20 minutes, and there was no Markelle Fultz, if he ever plays at all this season, which it's appearing like it might not be the case. There was no Justin Anderson as well in this one, but Bellinelli is clearly going to be ahead of Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot and Jared Bayless and can be a nice deep league source of threes. JJ Redick had 14, 7, and 5 himself, but shot the ball poorly, while McConnell, fresh off that triple-double against the Knicks, he struggled. And it's, with Bellinelli around, I think he's going to eat into some of TJ's playing time, and that's obviously going to limit what he can do as a fantasy option. The Charlotte Hornets and the Orlando Magic, Kemba Walker, mate, point guards against the Magic, you might as well be playing the Nets. 25 and 6, 4 steals, 4 triples, and a block. A huge night there, while Dwighty Howard had 22 and 13 with 2 blocks. A nice game from Jezza Lamb. 26 minutes for Lammy, 17, 5, and 3. A steal, a block. As so often happens with Lamb, when he has a big game, it comes on really good shooting. Now, he was able to sustain that for a big stretch earlier this season, 60% shooting here. And this was a game where Michael Kidd-Gilchrist only played the 23 minutes, enabling Lamb to get that extra playing time. I just feel his upside is really capped, and I don't think that he is a 12-team league guy. Batum had 14, 5, and 7. Also had one of the best Valentine's Day tweets. I wish I could remember it. I did retweet it. I think he says, I want to get to the Batum of your heart, which I was pretty happy with that. Marvin Williams played a lot of minutes and didn't do much, as is the story of his career. On to the Orlando Magic. It's me, Mario Hezonja, started again. 35 minutes, 21 and 10, 2 steals. How good is this guy? I can't get over how much he has improved this season. Again, huge shout out to him. Big hopes for him coming into the NBA. Just looked lost last season. Battled injuries, of course. But he is in a great spot here. As Gordon and Nick Vucevic and John Isaac and Terry Ross are all in real chance to return after the All-Star break. You're probably going to get Gordo and Vooch back straight away, and then Isaac and Ross after that. And that's 4 guys who are going to significantly cut into what Hezonja is doing. So I don't think his long-term value is there. I know many people want to speak it into existence, but we have to be realistic about where those minutes are coming from, at whose expense. Is it Mario Hezonja getting 30 minutes? At whose expense? Where are those minutes coming from? And it is hard to find that answer. The point guard conundrum continued in Orlando. This time, DJ Augustin stepped back up. 31 minutes, 16, 1 and 4 with 4 triples. It makes you go, shit, I want him. I want to own him. That's 2 out of 4 games that he has played well. Max played well in one of those games, and then they both did dueling shits all over the court in that third game. Augustin is clearly the guy I want over Mac, as I said the other day. Just give me the guy who starts. Mac was okay, 8 and 7 with 2 triples in 24 minutes, but it feels like it's going to go back and forward all the time. And again, I said this the other day, I believe, with the way that the rotations and the minutes get jerked around, you have to feel that Frank Vogel has some level of responsibility, given how Alfred Payton is playing now in Phoenix, for the stagnation or the inconsistency in Payton's game. We'll see how that all pans out, though. Biyombo had a double-double in 25 minutes. His value is done. While John Simmons remains not good, 5 and 5 in 25 minutes. He struggled in this one, while Fournier only had the 13 points. The next game we look at the Atlanta Hawks and the Detroit Pistons. The Hawks decided that Ersan Ilyasova, Dennis Schroeder, and Kent Bazemore were all out of this one. Bazemore was rested while the other 2 had injuries. We will see if this means anything for them down the track, but what it did mean is that we got a weird starting lineup. Malcolm Delaney, Tyler Dorsey, the artist formerly known as Torian Prince, The Baptist, and The Undertaker. We've been waiting for John Collins to get back into that starting lineup. We've been waiting for him to play 30 minutes, and he didn't really disappoint. 31 minutes, 11 and 10, 1 steal, 2 blocks. He could have been better because he could have gone at 60% instead of 38% from the field, but this is a nice performance, and you absolutely have to hold through the All-Star break. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Ilyasova. I said it on yesterday's show, this arbitrary All-Star break timeline for teams could change things, but you clearly have to hold him now. Delaney had 11 with 7 assists, while Isaiah Taylor had 13 with 7 assists. Delaney has been playing over Taylor. When Schroeder's back, their value is going to dip. Mike Muscala closed the game next to Collins over The Undertaker. It wasn't a great game from Dwayne. He had 8 and 7, still owning him, while Formerly had 14 and 3 in 29 minutes. Just a putrid shooter. I do not like him as an on-court player at all. His opportunity is fine, but I don't think he is a must-own guy at this stage. While Dorsey was solid, he's still just a deeper league guy, but he got 31 minutes here. Will he go back to those mid-teens, low 20s minutes in that next game when Bazemore returns? Most likely, relegating him to the deeper formats. Onto the Pistons. Ish Smith's been terrible, but this was a good night from him. 22, 4 and 9 with 2 steals. Really efficient shooting, while Jameer Nelson continues to absorb all the backup point guard minutes ahead of Langston Galloway here and be terrible. This is a real issue, I think, for Detroit and for Stan Van Gundy. Pistons fans are not impressed. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense why Nelson's getting this playing time. The rotation is all up shit creek at the moment. Luke Kennard's minutes are in the tank, even though he was back in the rotation. He had 18 minutes with 5 points here. Stan Johnson is ceding minutes to Jim Ennis. He only played the 29 here. Stan and had 14 and 5, while Ennis got 19. And I think if Stan plays 29 minutes, he's not a 12-team league guy. He needs the 35 that he was getting before the trade for Ennis. Reggie Bullock still doing what he does, efficiently shooting threes and scoring, doing very little else, but can help you in those areas. While Griffin had 13, 12, and 9, and Drummo had 13, 15, and 3. The New York Knicks and the Washington Wizards, what a weird-ass game this was. The Knicks just lit it up early, and then that was it. I think the Wizards scored about 50 to 10 in the third quarter. That's a marginal exaggeration, but not by much. Bradley Beal was unstoppable. 36, 5 and 7, 3 steals, 2 blocks and 4 triples. Just an absolute monster from Beal. While my boy Tomas Satoransky, 9, 4 and 11 with 3 blocks. I'm comfortable with claiming him as my boy. If you've listened to this podcast for a long time, you know how much I've been on the Satoransky bandwagon. Back at the start of the Red Rock Dynasty League, which I think is in its 3rd season now, me and Mark Roberts did a live stream of our draft, which was a 400-player auction draft. Went for about 3 or 4 hours, if I remember correctly. But because I'm an idiot and I was live streaming it, I had my draft board up, and I had stashed down the bottom of my list Satoransky, who was still over in Europe. And I don't know who it was, but some asshole in that league was watching the live stream And when I was down to no money, they went and nominated Satoransky, so they got him for $1 and I couldn't bid on him. So I don't know who that was in that league. I'm sure you're listening. Thank you for taking my boy Satoransky. I think he's a comfortable starting point guard on a team in the NBA. It's not going to be this team, of course, with John Wall, but Wall might be out for the entirety of the fantasy season, so Satoransky should be owned. Otto Porter had 22 and 6, while Markieff Morris played through his illness 13 and 7 in 25 minutes. Mahinmi outplayed Gortat 17 and 8 with 3 blocks for Jan, while Gortat had 6 and 8. I wouldn't be adding Mahinmi. I clearly wouldn't be adding Gortat. They're both just deeper league guys, while Oubre sucked 2 points in 27 minutes. On to the Knicks. I said this lots as well. Tim Hardaway, he was going to turn it around, and he did. He had 32 points in the first half, ended with 37, 6 triples, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals. He hit his threes, 6 of 9. He was 58% from the field. That is the turnaround that we knew was going to happen. When someone shoots 8% from 3, eventually it's going to turn around, and it did here for Timmy. Enes Kanter playing a lot of minutes at the moment, 24 and 14 with 5 assists and a block. And I railed on the Knicks yesterday. I'm going to go harder at Hornacek because what is this bullshit? 2 games ago, you moved Jarrett Jack and you started him and you played him 9 minutes. Went, here we go. All right, we're doing it. Jack's starting for whatever bullshit reason it is. We're going to develop Mudiay. We're going to develop Ntilikina. 2 games later, Jarrett Jack's playing 28 minutes. Ntilikina plays 10 minutes and Manny Mudiay plays just 20. Now, Ntilikina's not playing that well. Mudiay isn't either. But if you're going to come out, we're going to do this, we're going to develop the young guys, and then 2 games later, you go back to big minutes at Jarrett Jack, you take Luke Cornett out of the rotation entirely, what are you doing? And I know after the game, he said, after the All-Star break, look, again, it's a bullshit arbitrary thing. You'd already made the move. You'd taken Jack's minutes back. You'd taken Courtney Lee's minutes back, and then you reverse course. What did Jack come up and go, Jeff, you said it was going to be All-Star break. Oh, sorry, Jarrett. I'll put you back in, mate. Get you back starting again. What's the point? It's just bullshit. Now, if we are going to believe him that after the All-Star break, Jack's minutes are going to go, and he'll probably be the odd man out of the rotation, Mudiay has some value, but he hasn't been a good player ever in his career. So he's not what I'd label a must-own guy. Mick Beasley took shots. We know he's going to do that. 16 and 11 in 40 minutes for Mick, while Lance Thomas moved back to the bench so Courtney Lee could absorb 34 minutes. 8, 3 and 3 for Lee. I don't think that he's a 12-team league guy, despite the strong performances he has had this season. The Indiana Pacers and the Brooklyn Nets. Vic Oladipo, 25, 3 and 4 with 3 steals, while Miles Turner, 29 minutes, 11 and 14 with a triple one. Didn't shoot the ball well, Miles, but these are performances which should make you feel a little bit happier. If there's ever an example you need of playing centers against the Nets, Al Jefferson had 13 points in 8 minutes, missed 1 shot and had 2 blocks. Al Jefferson. Yep. That's all the information you need there about playing centers against the Nets. The other one you need is point guards against the Nets. Corey Joseph had 15 and 11 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. The guy who had, I think we had scoreless in 25 minutes the other day. I'm not adding Joseph in any 12s, maybe 14-team leagues, while Daz Collison is out. But Collison could be back as soon as we get back from the All-Star break. Bojan Bogdanovic had 14 and 5 with 2 triples, while Lance Stevenson didn't do a huge amount. For the Nets, this let's play Quincy Acey and Dante Cunningham over Jarrett Allen bullshit is ludicrous. I've been a big supporter of Kenny Atkinson and what he does, but this is nothing. This is ridiculous. Acey is a nobody. He hustles hard. Good for him. Dante Cunningham, to me, is one of the worst players in the NBA who gets rotation minutes. I don't understand why we're limiting Jarrett Allen. He's played only 20 minutes here. I would still be holding him, whether we're going to go to some post All-Star break change. This was a game where Jahlil Okafor was out as well. I just don't get it for Allen. I don't understand why we're limiting him. After he played so well in those big minutes, we acquired Dante Cunningham. You don't have to play him. Just because you got him in the trade, you don't have to play him. There's no rule. He is not a good player. And AC is just a guy that should be playing backup minutes. And when Rondé Hollis-Jefferson comes back, does that hurt Allen even further? I bloody hope not. I don't think it will, but I hope it doesn't. D'Angelo Russell, man, he's coming. 18, 3 and 9, 29 minutes. The stats are ramping up. I don't know if he's going to take that starting job back off Spencer Dinwiddie, but the minutes are fine. Karis LeVert coming back might have an impact. I think it's more going to impact a guy like Jumpin' Joe Harris than it is for D'Angelo, and he should be owned in all leagues. Krabby, the Blue Swimmer, had 24 and 8 with 5 triples on an unsustainable hot streak, but absolutely has value for now. While Damari Carroll had 21 and 10, 4 assists, 5 triples, 1 steal, and a block. That is a monster from Damari Carroll, and he should be owned in standard leagues also. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Memphis Grizzlies. Russ had 23, 13, and 15 with 2 blocks. Nice. But the best thing about that is he went 11 of 12 from the free throw line, 92%. That is exactly the thing we expected from Russell Westbrook before the season started. And then inexplicably, he became a below average free throw shooter. Hopefully it's fixed. Paulie George, 28, 6, and 4, while Melo had 19 points with very, very little else. Alex Abrines hurt his hip, so Terry Ferguson stepped up into the rotation. 8 points with 2 triples in 10 minutes. No guarantee he even plays after the break if Abrines is fine, while Steve Adams couldn't back up his monster. 11 and 4 in 31 minutes. When I say Steven Adams monster, it sounds like I'm talking about his dick, but I'm actually talking about the big performance he had on Tuesday. Not much else to talk about with that team. On to the Grizz. Tyreek, 31 minutes, 23, 9, and 7, 4 triples, a steal, and a block. Yeah, this is what Tyreek owners are loving. I drafted Tyreek in so many leagues, and therefore, I'm going pretty well in those leagues because getting that sort of value with your last pick in the draft is a huge bonus. And then when you shut down, it's like, what's going to happen here? What are they going to do with him? I had a level of confidence, but it's always great to see it actually pan out. Jarrell Martin is better than Jermichael Green. He played 31 minutes, 17 and 8 with a 1-1. And Kyle McEwen, I was talking to him today about it. The Jarrell Martin story is one of the best ones in the NBA as well. The fact that he was legitimately cut at the start of the season, and then before they put the paperwork in, they went, let's just wait a sec. Let's just see what happens. They didn't cut him, and now he is playing the best ball of his career. Really, really going strong at the moment, Jarrell. Jermichael Green had 5 and 5 in 19 minutes. I don't think he's a good player, but you know that I've said that many, many times. Marc Gasol had 10, 6, and 9 in his 30 minutes, battled some foul trouble. The thing keeps going, will they shut down Marc Gasol? Will they shut down Marc Gasol? I think that players will miss games in April. I think that there'll be players that will sit out games in April. I don't think that Mark is all of a sudden just going to stop playing. Maybe he sees some fewer minutes, but again, I think most of this stuff will happen between April 1st and April 11th, which is why I don't think any fantasy seasons roto leagues are a little bit different, but any fantasy head-to-head leagues should continue past the last Sunday in March, whatever date that is. And I think it's 25th this season, which is when any league that I set up is finishing. Chandler Parsons is alive. He played 12 minutes and had 5 points with 2 assists. That's great to see him. And what I also want to mention is people always talk about injuries, and especially guys who haven't played and they go, the All-Star break's just one game away. There's no way they're going to play. We saw many players who that was the case. Aaron Gordon, Lonzo Ball. We're just going to sit him and come back after the break. But many players who also, with this one game left, they played through it. Chandler Parsons returned one game before the All-Star break. Thomas Satoransky was questionable, concussion, played this one game before the All-Star break. Chris Dunn, who'd missed 11 games, played one game before the All-Star break. So it's never an absolute guarantee when there's one game left before the break that everyone's just going to, we'll just sit it out and we'll come back in a week's time. It's almost a 50-50 proposition, and there's no hard and fast rule about it. So don't try and burn that into your brain as well, is that when this comes around next season, if you're setting weekly lineups and someone's questionable, don't assume that that guy is, he's going to sit because he might as well take the week off and then take the game off and then have an extra week. That's not the way that these teams always operate. The next game, the Lakers and the Pelicans, just a procession for the Pelicans here. There was a double ejection, Isaiah Thomas and Rajon Rondo. Just this Isaiah Thomas tribute video thing. I cannot believe this shit is still going. Rondo was taunting Thomas about it, apparently, on the court. The whole thing is just as ludicrous as it gets. The Paul Pierce refusal of it. Rondo getting his mug involved in it. And the fact that they got ejected about it is just, it's humorous in the pettiness of the NBA. But come on, mate, just get over it, guys. What the hell's going on? With Thomas out, Josh the Hitman Hart played 31 minutes. He had 15 and 6 with 2 steals and a block. 83% shooting. And of course, when Lonzo comes back, I don't see a path for 30 minutes for the Hitman. I love him. I think he's a great option. He's a really productive rookie who can be a good fantasy player. I just don't see the path to the minutes. Julius Randle had 20 and 5, while the future MVP Kyle Kuzma got hot early, had 23 and 5, and that's a great sign for his owners. While Ingram had 2 and 5, and he is rolling at the moment, really thriving in this point guard role. It's not going to happen, of course, when Lonzo's back, but he is, over the last 2 weeks, he is a top 35 player. And with how shit he was last season, he was 272nd in 29 minutes last year. He is 34th in the last 2 weeks. Still not inside the top 100 for the season, but With the ball in his hands, his shooting is up to 55, 78, and 63 from three on an unsustainable three-point hot streak. But the fact that he's got his free throws up with the extra confidence, he's attacking the rim more, the assists are up, he looks really comfortable as a point guard, and that's superb to see for Lakers fans. Caldwell Pope had 5, 8, and 8. A weird, you never see that stat line from Kentavious Caldwell Pope, but you did today. Ivica Zubac, he played 6 minutes, while Brook Lopez, the minutes went up, and they've gone back down. 18 minutes for Brookie here, 8 and 3. I'm not sure he's an automatic drop at this point, but it's definitely something to pay attention to. Drew Holiday continued his good season, 24, 4, and 11 with 4 steals, while Rondo got himself ejected, so we got more minutes of Ian Clark, who played 24, and Etuan Moore played 31, and Darius Miller played 31. Miller had 19 points with a lot of 4s, 4 triples, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Good numbers for him, more of a streamer. Nick Mirotic came off the bench again, only played the 30 minutes, but he did have himself a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
16 and 7 with 2 threes, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 2 assists. So he had the full Richie, the 2 for 2. He had the 4 twos there in that line. Him coming to the bench takes about 2 to 3 minutes off his upside ceiling. He's still a must-own guy. While Emeka Okafor started, I don't know if they're going to sign Okafor for the rest of the season. My gut says they will. He played 20 minutes and had 3 and 8, while Sheik Diallo had 9 and 4 in his 12 minutes. Disappointed to see Diallo play less than Okafor. I would much prefer they just start Diallo. If they're going to start a center so Davis doesn't have to play there, start Diallo, but Okafor doing some of the tough things that are needed, not really having much fantasy value. DeAndre Liggins, again, him and Dante Cunningham have the annual battle for how is this bloke getting meaningful rotation minutes in the NBA. I'm not sure who's winning at the moment. The Sacramento Kings and the Houston Rockets. The Kings, after deciding, no, we're not resting any veterans anymore. Remember that policy that came in on the 16th of January? We're going to rest 2 to 3 veterans every game, and then for the last 3 weeks have rested none of them. Well, today, out of the blue, Zach Randolph rested. Huh? Like, what's going on? What kind of bullshit is this? Change the starting lineup so we could get Jakar Sampson in. Jakar Sampson on a 2-way deal. He had 7 and 7 with a steal and a block. He played all right. But you don't waive Papianis for this sort of bullshit. You don't trade away Malachi Richardson. Nothing makes sense with this team, and it hasn't made sense with this team for a very, very long time. Why all of a sudden did Randolph rest here? Why? And if you're going back to this, why is Garrett Temple playing 30 minutes and Buddy Hield playing 22? Why is Vince Carter playing 24 minutes and Buddy Hield 22? Where is the logic? On a more positive note, Bogdan Bogdanovic, you have to own him. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 4 triples. He's the best player on this team, and that's not changing. De'Aaron Fox hurt his head. At least he's got a week to overcome it. 26 minutes, 9, 2, and 3. If you want to see something real humorous, go check out the Twitter account. I think it's G Swiss, who every time that someone's injured and is playing against De'Aaron Fox, he has that meme that originated around Summer League that Lonzo was too scared to play De'Aaron Fox in Summer League. So anytime someone's injured against Fox, Greg tweets this out. Scared of Fox, and he had another one today saying that because Fox is replacing Lonzo in the rookie sophomore game, that Lonzo again was scared of him, and whoever else on the other side is going to be scared of him now. All this sort of stuff, and the replies to it not understanding the joke from Lakers fans. Oh, fuck off, mate! What do you know? What are you talking about? The only reason Fox is playing is because Ball's injured. He's terrible. It is high humor to see the tweet replies to that tweet. So go check it out. G Swiss, who has these consistent scared of Fox checkers, and had one today, and it is high comedy. Anyway, Justin Jackson, 12, 5, and 4, 2 triples, 2 blocks. He has played minutes this season and been bad in most of those minutes, but he's starting to look a little bit better. He's more of a guy I'd look at as a 16-teamer or a 14-teamer, or shit, if your bench goes 5 deep, maybe in a 12, just to see, because the minutes, they should be there, but Dave Yeager may not be able to resist the urge to play 28 minutes of Vince Carter. Now, I said yesterday that Vince Carter played big minutes because who did they play? I don't remember who they played. It was one of his former teams, Memphis, Toronto, Dallas. He didn't play for Houston, so I don't know why he's getting 24 minutes. Oh well. The Rockets, Eric Gordon and Trevor Ariza is out. So Joe Johnson signed today, played 31 minutes and had 9 points on 9 shots. I do not understand him playing 31 minutes at all. It won't be the case continually. But him playing more than Luke Marmute is annoying. It's frustrating from a real life point of view. And he's been bad this year, Joe Johnson. And I know D'Antoni's got a history with him from Phoenix, but hopefully he doesn't get sucked into the trap of playing Johnson ahead of other guys who should be playing. Definitely not a fantasy value guy. And remember, Gordo and Trev Ariza are out. Capella had 13 and 11 with a steal and 2 blocks. Chrissy Paul had 19, 4 and 7. While Jimmy Harden, just a quiet 28, 9 and 9 with 5 threes and 2 steals for Jim. PJ Tucker had a strong night, 10 and 7 also, but him and Marmute just aren't moving the needle fantasy-wise. Ryan Anderson also a big loser from the Joe Johnson signing. Only 21 minutes here for Ando, 8 and 8 with 2 triples. The LA Clippers and the Boston Celtics, that is, the Celtics are in trouble at the moment. They're struggling. They hopefully can get it together, but the Clippers on the road laying 130 points, 129 to be exact, on the Celtics is worrying. DeAndre Jordan had a career high, 30 points with 13 rebounds and 4 steals, while Toby Harris had 21, 8 and 5, and the Rooster 20 and 9 in 40 minutes. The Rooster's in leagues. He's available. Go on at him. Make sure he's owned. The Table had 9 and 4 with 4 blocks. He is a permanent producer. And more of you can stream him on low volume days, but more of a 14-team league guy. Milosh, 10 points, 4 assists in 17 minutes, not happening for standard leagues because Austin Rivers continues to just dominate the minutes. 10, 3 and 4 for Rivers, 36 minutes. Again, more than Milosh, more than Lou Williams, more than Avery Bradley. A confounding decision that continues to happen. Not like Avery Bradley's been good because he's putrid and he shouldn't be owned in any standard leagues, 10s or 12-teamers. For the Celtics, Marcus Morris had 13 and 11 in 35 minutes, a strong performance, but I don't think that he's a must-own guy, while Kyrie had 33, 1 and 8. Al Horford 20 and 4, while Greggy Munro.
As Greg runs in, we realise this could get dangerous.
Just the 10 minutes for Greg, 8 and 5 with 2 blocks and a steal, so the production's really good, but I would not be holding him in standard formats at all. Jaylen Brown had 12 and 8, while Jason Tatum, he's struggling. I think that's probably the fairest way to mention or say what's happening with Tatum. 10, 4 and 2 on 13 shots. We knew that sort of shooting wasn't going to continue, but over the last month, he is outside the top 160. And I know I've said this before, but if you are a new listener, these sort of numbers that he's putting up, this is what I thought he would be coming out of Duke. The guy who was sort of just mediocre at most things. He came in shooting like his arm was attached to a flamethrower and blew everyone out of the water. But he is reverting to the mean. I don't believe in rookie walls. I've said that plenty of times. This is mainly a case of a rookie's not going to shoot, or nobody is going to continue to shoot 52% from 3. So all of that stuff is going to come down, and we're seeing that now. It's affecting his points, his field goal percentage, obviously his 3-point output as well. He's not a droppable guy just yet, but it could very well become that way. Terry Rozier had 13, 3 and 7. Decent night for him, but this team needs Marcus Smart back. They need him bad, and Rozier is going to cop a hit when Smart returns. The Toronto Raptors and the Chicago Bulls, man, the Raptors, they didn't like having to play their starters in the fourth quarter, so they decided to just absolutely spank the Bulls. This game was so out of hand that even the backups got rested in the fourth quarter, and the backups to the backups played. We had Alfonso McKinney and Bebo Nogueira playing in that fourth quarter. That's how badly this got out of hand. Ibaka, strong game, minutes low, 20 and 7, 2 blocks, 2 threes, a nice performance, while Valanciunas had 14 and 9 and Poeltl had 10 and 7 with 4 blocks. I still think there's a real chance that Poeltl starts next season and he is a top 100 fantasy guy. Siakam, 17 and 6, don't expect that level of shooting production, 7 of 9 from the field for Pascal. DeLon had 7 points with 6 assists, while Freddie VanVleet had 11, 2 and 4. Again, nice numbers. The minutes just really do cap their upside, though. While the Jedi, OG Anunoby,
Hello there.
5 and 6 in 18 minutes, not troubling anyone in fantasy this year. This was such a smacking. No one in Chicago got over 30 minutes. Punch Bob Shipbloke had 18 and 3. Lowry Markkinen had 14 and 6. And Chrissy Dunn returned. He played 20 minutes. He had 8, 3 and 3. That's clearly going to impact Jaren Grant as we move forward, who could be out of the rotation entirely when Campaign is back. Noah Vonleh made his Bulls debut, had 3 and 4, while Chris Felicio back into the rotation. It's going to be interesting to see how they run things for Chicago. Levine, man, his shot selection was horrendous. 11 points of 17 attempts. I'm not a massive Levine fan as a real life player. I think he looks like a superb bloke. He's super flashy. Great dunks, great athleticism. I just don't fully subscribe to his game as a player. Field goal percentage is always an issue for guys returning from ACLs, and we're going to see that continue to be a problem for him. The next game we look at, the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz. Another one of those players. The All-Star break's coming up. He won't play. Well, Devin Booker played. He played 36 minutes. He had 28, 5 and 3 with 6 triples, and the Suns kept this one close. Alex Len, again, trying to work out what some of these coaches decide is pretty tough. The Suns have had multiple games with no centers around, and Len plays like 12 minutes. In this one, no Tyson Chandler, so they decide to start Len, and they play him 38 minutes. 14 and 7 with 3 steals and 4 blocks. An absolute monster of a performance. 8 of 10 from the free throw line. Huge stuff from Len. But the pattern has been not to do this at all with him. So I don't really know what to make of it. Is he got top 100 upside? Of course he has. Clearly. Very, very clearly. And if you've got an open roster spot, if you've been holding on to Greg Monroe, drop him. And just see what happens after the break. But the track record for Len has not been good in terms of how they've played him. Lord Alfred Payton, a triple-double and a triple-one, 13, 11, and 12 with a steal, a 3, and a block. Looks really good. While Joshy Jackson, 36 minutes, 22 and 7, 2 triples. And the most positive thing here is the fact that they started Booker, Warren, Payton, Bender, Len. So happy with that starting lineup, but Jackson still worked his way into 36 minutes. Marquise Chris continues to suck. 19 minutes for him for 5 points, while Bender had 6 and 4 in 25 minutes. If I've owned Bender in a 12-team league, I'd happily take the risk on Josh Jackson, and I'd even take a look at Len, because I just don't think Bender's fantasy upside is as high as what Len's is. Who knows if that'll work out, though. Jackson also, back to Joshy, we have to note that he did shoot 67% from the field, and he has been an abomination from his field goal percentage point of view most of the time. TJ Warren also battled some foul trouble, so that's why his minutes were low. On to the Utah Jazz, no ravishing Rick Rubio. So Royce O'Neal, a player who did well against Phoenix earlier in the season, had 19 and 5 here, 3 threes, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. But when Rubio comes back, he moves back to a low 20s minutes role, and I think Alec Burks is entirely out of the rotation when Rubio is back. Burks has been terrible for this big stretch of time. 9 minutes for him, scoreless there. Dante Exum also could be back after the All-Star break. I think that could impact Burks, obviously could impact Hull Neto, but he's not going to have a fantasy impact. Well, Jingle and Joe, he is the player I'm going to do the spotlight on today, so we'll talk about him later, but another decent game, 13, 4, and 6. You will be absolutely floored when you see some of the rankings for Jingle and Joe. Derek Favors and Gobert, both awesome. Favors is on an absolute roll at the moment. This is the guy that we've saw at times be this consistent top 40 player. 18 and 12, 33 minutes. They're going big more often. They're not doing that thing where they start him and pull him after 3 minutes and then play him exclusively as a backup center. They're running Gobert and Favors together, and it's working on this 11-game win streak. So while his minutes are over 30, Derek, he is a guy to own. When he plays 26 minutes, it's tough, but they have reversed course and it's working pretty well for them at the moment. Jumpin' Jay Crowder had 15 and 7, just the 25 minutes for Jay, but that's good enough to take a speculative look in standard leagues. The last game of the night, the Warriors lost to the Blazers. Durant dropped 50, so that's a huge night, obviously. 50 points, 6 triples, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks, while Steph struggled, 17, 4, and 6 with 3 steals. But we've seen point guards struggle against Portland all season, so it's not overly surprising. Draymond Green was back, and this is as Draymond a Green line as it gets. 16, 12, and 7, a 3, 2 steals, and 4 blocks, and Clay had 17 and 4. Interestingly, Uncle P Nick Young started the second half over Zaza Pachulia, who only played 6 minutes, and that's going to make Jordan Bell's return curious. Now, Bell was out of the rotation when he got injured. Yes, he was obviously on the court when he got injured, because that was a game that Draymond Green was out, so Bell came from out of the rotation to start. But prior to that, he'd been replaced by Kevon Looney. So I'm not saying that Bell's going to come in and steal a 20-minute role or take minutes away from Zaza, but this was definitely an interesting development. For the Blazers, Damian Lillard, 44, 3, and 8, a huge game, huge efficiency, huge win for the Blazers, while Al-Farouq Aminu,
sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
He only had 9 points, but he did it on 4 shots. He had 11 rebounds and 3 steals. Really a specialist and fits certain teams and a must-own 14-teamer, but does have some 12-team value. While McCollum had 29 on 26 shots, and Yusuf Nurkic played through his issues, his health issues, 17 and 13 in 30 minutes, while Mo Harkless started, did jack shit, and that is the story of the Mo Harkless season. All right, let's move on now and take a break. We'll be back and talk about the player spotlight, which is Jingle and Joe Ingles, and we will break down the 2 games we've got for Thursday in the NBA for DFS. We'll be back in a minute or so. let's go into the player spotlight. And we're heading to Utah, and we're going to be looking at jingling Joe Ingles of the Utah Jazz. Joe is a top 70 player this year. In fact, he's the 69th ranked player at the moment for the year. But over the last 2 weeks, he's the 26th ranked player. 26th, and this is post Rocket Rodney Hood trade. 16.5 points, 3.5 triples, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.1 steals, shooting 52 and 100% from the line and 52% from 3. And you go, Josh, 52% from 3, it's not sustainable. He's shooting 45% for the season. He shot 44% last year. So, yeah, it's a little bit above where it is normally, but it's not outrageous. It's not a 30% three-point shooter shooting 55 and you go, well, there's no way this is sticking. It's not someone shooting 62. It's him being 5% over for a 2-week stretch. And in fact, over the last month, he's at 53% from 3. So again, this is not big stretches for Jinglen. He is a must-own guy. He needs to be owned in all leagues. He's only averaging 10.8 points for the season, 2.5 threes, but it's 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal per game, and efficient stuff. Look, he's way less valuable in points leagues, I know that. But in your 9 category and roto leagues, his ability to contribute in every category without being a big negative it's massive for roto leagues. And recently, the 3-point output is out of control. Over his last 16 games, he is hitting 3.2 triples and doing it with a field goal percentage of 54%. That combination literally doesn't exist anywhere. Not even Steph Curry can hit that amount of threes and maintain a field goal percentage of that level. Adding some assists, adding some steals. And the steals actually are a little bit lower than what we sort of anticipated they would be this year. He's at 1.1 in 31 minutes. Last year, he was at 1.2 in 24 minutes. So there is scope for him to get better there. He's taking on more shots post-Rocket. 11.3 shots in the last 8 games. 8.4 for the season. More playmaking roles with Rubio out. 5 assist average over his last 5 games. He is rolling almost since he got benched for that one game for Rocket, and then Rocket hurt his leg and he moved back into the starting lineup. Ingles has been unstoppable in that time, which is, let me count how many games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. In those 13 games since he was benched on the 19th of January against the Knicks, he came back and started the next game against the Clippers. Since he's been benched, he has had only 2 games of shooting under 50%. Today's game, where he was inefficient against the Suns, shot 25%, still had 13, 4, and 6 with 2 steals and a block. And a game against the Grizzlies on the 7th of February where he went 3 of 7 for 7 points, and that was his worst game. He has been rolling. He's hit multiple threes in nearly every single one of those games. Only in 2 games has he not hit multiple threes. He gets steals. He's getting big assists. He is an excellent, excellent basketball player. He is an excellent fantasy asset who is significantly underappreciated, and he is doing great things. And he is you can talk about the Don being a huge part of it, and he is, but what Ingles is doing is absolutely massive for this team. Wing creation, wing defense, elite shooting, like almost to a stage where if it misses, you're going, oh shit, it missed. Like it is at that level with Ingles at the moment, and this is not a 10-game sample. This is 2 years of him being one of the best 3-point shooters. I think he was 3rd in the NBA in 3-point percentage last season. This is 3 years of him being an absolutely elite 3-point shooter. And now increasing the usage, increasing the playmaking, it's all happening for Ingles at the moment. Putting together some great stuff. The only NBA player to appear on this podcast as well, so maybe I'll take some credit for it, but I don't. Of course, he's putting together an absolutely fantastic season, really, really cracking at the moment. But he is 30 years of age, so at some point there's going to be a decline. But when you look at him, what's a decline in athleticism going to do? His game is absolutely 100% not based on athleticism at all. He's not out jumping people. He's not out speeding people. He's not out running people. He's not jumping over people. He's shooting. He's one step ahead of everyone on the court in terms of where to be and where to put the ball. He knows his positioning with quick hands. His game is not reliant upon athleticism at all. So while there will be a drop-off, it's not like Zach LaVine hitting to age of 31 or age of 30, who relies so much on speed and burst and bludgeoning people with elite athleticism. That's not what Ingles is. Can he be a top 100 guy again next season? Sure, absolutely. Unless the Jazz attract some level of small forward in free agency, which they're not likely to do, they're not going to be in a position to get an elite draft pick there. And even the guy that they do bring in, I think they'd still want to start Ingles and play him 31, 32 minutes a night. So I think he can have another season very similar to this one, maybe another 2. But after that, you would have to think it starts to drop off. But it's been a huge thing for him. Many people dropped him earlier on. Majority of people that would have commented to me, do I drop him? And most of the time I said, no, you stick with him. There might have been a couple of cases where someone said, should I drop him? Yes, because someone else was on the wire that I did like more at the time. But this has been a huge resurgence from Joe, and he does put up really strong numbers, despite that little slump he had across Christmas where he had about 10 games in a row of scoring in single digits. But it's his ability to fill up those other categories that really does good stuff for him, fantasy-wise. All right. Let's go now. Before I get into talking about the DFS action for Thursday, just a quick reminder, it's a 2-game slate. It's the day before the All-Star break. These players and these teams that play on this day, they have checked out. I can assure you of that. There's going to be weird shit going on. 2-game slates in general is an absolute nightmare to play for DFS. Please try and limit your exposure on this day for Thursday. It's not going to be a good day at all. Let's talk perfect lineups for Wednesday on FanDuel. Ish Smith had 45.3, Corey Joseph 42.7, Braddles Beal 64.5, or Timmy Hardaway had 47.5, Damari Carroll 43, Durant 69.4, Jimmy Johnson 37.3, Draymond 58.9, and DeAndre had 60.1 for a total of 468.7, and that cost $59,900. On DraftKings, Joseph 42.25, Andy Harrison 36.5, Durant 72.75, Carroll had 46.5, DeAndre 49.25, Lillard 63.75, Timmy Hardaway 50.25, and Jim Johnson 37.5. That totaled 408.75 points, and that cost $50,000 dues. Let's get into these 2 games that are on. The first one of these is a game that I'm sure many people are really interested to watch, and there's absolutely no sarcasm there at all. It's the Denver Nuggets traveling to Milwaukee. The Nuggets coming off some pretty big wins, including a game over the Spurs. The Bucks are favored by 3, and the total is 213.5. The Muppet, John Henson, has already been ruled out, while Jamal Murray is listed as probable for the Nuggets. He was probable in the last game and played like 37 minutes, so I think we should be feeling okay there. At point guard, again, with the 2-game slate, so many guys are going to be in play. Murray at 6,300. Eric Bledsoe's defense and the Bucks' point guard defense in general can be a concern. At 6,300 for Murray, it does still put him in play, while Bledsoe at 8,000. I love the matchup for Bledsoe here. I'm all about Bled. I'd use him over Murray, assuming that I can fit that extra $1,700 worth of salary in. At shooting guard, he's at $6,000, so that's a reasonable price, but I don't feel great about using him. Shooting guards have struggled a lot against the Bucks this season. I think there are better options out there than Gaz, while Chrissy Middleton at $7,900 have been putting up some pretty decent numbers as well with that price. I think it prices him out. Devin Harris, Tone Snell, Sterling Brown, Jason Terry, Sean Kilpatrick. I don't want any of them. But I do want Fart and Will Barton at $7,700. I would much prefer to take him over Chris Middleton, more for GPPs, not for cash. I can't stand watching Barton play on the court. He just is not a fun player for me. He has some exciting plays, but watching him complain and take final shots when there are better players out there just pisses me off no end. But at $7,700, he can comfortably give you 40 points, 45, 50 points. He is a GPP option. At small forward, Gianni Antetokounmpo, 11,700. Yep, limited slate. He's totally fine. While Wilson Chandler, baby neck. FanDuel's gone, well, screw you guys. He's at 6,200 now. So good luck trying to get value out of that. But there is still some upside. He dropped 46 in the last game. He's got a good history against Milwaukee, a 37-point average the last 3 times there. More GPP than tournaments, though. At power forward, Jabari Parker has not been good, but at 3,900, just to differentiate yourself a little bit, I'd throw him into a tournament for sure. While Trey Lyles at 5,000, I don't want anything to do with that. Center Thon McCurr, 3,800, no Muppet. So McCurr has an opportunity only for tournaments. While Tyler Zeller at 42, he had the big game last time. I'd feel much more comfortable using Zeller than McCurr at this point, but really, given the FanDuel structure, not super interested. Nick Jokic, $10,000. That's obviously a decent salary, but he's got an opportunity here against both Zeller and McCurr to really go off and drop a 50, and he can do that pretty comfortably, so I like using Nick Jokic here. On DraftKings, Murray at 6-1, probably lean a little bit more towards tournaments, and then a bunch of guys I like for cash. Baby Neck at 4-9 is strong. Farton Will Barton at 6-8. Yanni at 10-7. Jokic at 9-8. Chrissy Middleton, love him on DraftKings at 6-9. And Bledsoe at 7-1. Almost the strongest play of the day at that sort of a price against that sort of a defense. Let's now go to the last game of the night. It's the Lakers. It's the Timberwolves. The Wolves are favored by 10. The total is 224. Isaiah Thomas was ejected today. He will have no problems in playing in this one. Jeff Teague.
My name is Jeff.
He is at 6,700. Big game in the last one. Normally, I wouldn't be massive into Teague, but great matchup and limited slate, totally okay. While Isaiah at 7,300, that's just too high to use that in cash, but he's comfortably got 40-point upside, so yeah, absolutely in your GPP pool. At shooting guard, Wiggos at 6,300. We're only using him for tournaments at this point, while Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is in the same boat. The Hitman Josh Hart at 6,000. Look, he had 32 today, but that required a Isaiah ejection, so I'm not really feeling too keen there. At small forward, Jim Butler at 9,500. Totally fine. Yep, we know he's going to be good. Struggled in that last game, only 32 points, but this has got 40 plus written all over it. While Brandon Ingram at 6,700. In on Ingram, playing really, really well. Totally in on using him. At power forward, Taj is at 52. Strong stuff from Taj. Great matchup for Taj here. I think he's in for a really good game. While the future MVP at 6,900, it's probably fade territory just because of that salary. But he does have 40-point upside, and on a day like this, you got to consider it. At center, I like Julius Randle at 75, but only for tournaments, whereas I love Karl Towns at 10-3 for cash. He's crushing at the moment. He dropped 65 in his last game. We saw what Tone Davis did to the Lakers defense today. Towns is in line for a 60-point upside sort of performance. Love him. Lopez, 53. Probably not. On DraftKings, Caldwell-Pope and Wiggins still tournament guys, and a lot of guys I like for cash. Isaiah, Randall, Taj, Teague, Ingram, even Brook Lopez at 45 I think you can consider for cash. Jim Butler and the future MVP, a bunch of options. And of course, Karl Anthony Towns at 9,300. Let's have a look now at the other sites on Yahoo for our tournaments. The Blue Arrow, KCP, Brookie Lopez and Jamal Crawford. And for cash and tournaments, it's Devin Harris, the Hitman, Baby Neck, Kyle Kuzma, Barton, Teague, Randall, Middleton, Isaiah, and Bledsoe. On Moneyball, Jokic for a GPP, Murray, Wiggins, KCP, and McCurr. And for cash, it's Tyler Zeller, Wilson Chandler, Taj Gibson, Teague, Randall, Isaiah, Bledsoe, Towns, Butler, and Yanni. And on Draft Stars, for tournaments, we've got the future MVP, we've got Tone Snell, and then for cash and tournaments, McCurr, Zeller, Wiggo, Taj, Gaz Harris, Farton, Will Barton, the Blue Arrow, Chris Middleton, Julius Randle, Eric Bledsoe, Isaiah Thomas, Karl Anthony Towns, Jim Butler, Nick Jokic, and Yanni Antetokounmpo. That wraps it up for today. A big thank you to everyone who's listened to this podcast in the first half/70% of this NBA season. Going to take a break now and be back on Thursday to preview Thursday's games for DFS. Enjoy the All-Star break festivities. I'm going to be working on Basketball Monster, going through and adjusting all the rest of season projections for all the teams over this break, having a little bit of time to myself as well. And of course, my Twitter is always there at redrock_bball. If you do listen to this podcast and you have enjoyed what's happened so far this season, go and spend these next couple of days to leave a 5-star review. You can also find us on Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Spotify, and of course on YouTube, where you can subscribe, you can give a thumbs up, and you can leave a comment. Check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On NBA Net. We're done. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. DeLon Wright.